Some people don't realize what they had until your silence becomes the loudest reminder they ever hear. My friends, folks, listen to me. Each day they go without you. It's not just a day, it's a reflection, a silent mirror they can't bear to look into. Because that silence isn't just an absence, it's a reminder of everything you were, everything you gave, everything they threw away like it meant nothing. They might walk around like they're unbothered, smiling, posting, acting cool. But deep down, the silence is screaming, and every time they hear nothing from you, their mind fills the quiet with regret. Let's not sugarcoat it. You were the real deal. You showed up. You loved hard. You forgave too quickly. You stayed through the storms, even when you should have run. You were there when no one else was. You made sacrifices they never even saw. You didn't love halfway, folks. You loved with both hands, your whole heart and your whole soul. And they mistook your availability for something they could always come back to, like a light they could turn on whenever it got dark. They thought you'd always be there. But now, the lights are off, and they're stumbling in the dark, trying to find the switch. You gave your heart without a price tag, and they acted like it came from a clearance shelf. And maybe they'll never admit it. Maybe their ego is too loud to whisper the truth. But every quiet moment they have without you, it echoes. It rattles the lie they tried to tell themselves, that you'd always come back, that they didn't lose much, that they could do better. But let's be real. They didn't just lose a lover. They lost someone real. And in a world full of actors and half-effort connections, that kind of loss stings more with time. You see, Stoic love doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it doesn't throw tantrums, it observes. It stands tall in the wreckage. Stoic love lets go, not because it's over, but because it recognizes what's no longer worth holding on to. You didn't go silent to punish them. You went silent because you were done auditioning for someone who never saw the value of the role you played. And look what they did with that silence. Nothing. Not a fight. Not a change. Just more silence. Folks, when someone can replace your presence with quiet, that's all the closure you need. Let's break this lie right here and now. They didn't leave because you were too much. They left because they couldn't match what you brought to the table. And instead of rising, they ran. Because being loved by someone real, that takes real accountability. And not everyone's built for that kind of emotional honesty. You were deep waters. They only knew how to paddle in puddles. They brought games to the table. You brought presents. They brought confusion. You brought clarity. They brought breadcrumbs. You brought a whole damn feast, and still they left the table like they were starving. Imagine that. Let me give you a little visual. Imagine someone standing in front of a safe full of gold, but they don't know the combination. Instead of trying to unlock it with care, they walk away thinking they'll find treasure somewhere easier. What they don't know is that you were the gold. You weren't hard to love. You were just hard to fool. So no, this isn't revenge. This is recognition. This is you seeing clearly, standing firm, choosing peace. This is the start of something stronger than silence. It's the beginning of your return to yourself. You didn't lose anything, they did. And every day without you is just another page in the book of their regret. Say it with me right now. I was the real one. Number 1. You were the constant in their chaos. You were the constant heartbeat in their chaos, and they treated you like background noise they could mute whenever they pleased. My friends, let's be honest about something most people don't want to admit. You were always there, steady, present, the one they knew they could call at 2 a.m. when everything fell apart, the one who didn't flinch when their storms came crashing through. While they were inconsistent, you were reliable. While they played hot and cold, you burned steady like a lighthouse, guiding them through their mess. You were the safe place, the soft landing, the anchor in their madness. And yet, they made you feel like an afterthought. It's wild, isn't it? How someone can lean on you like a crutch and still act like you're the problem. How they can expect your love, your energy, your presence, and then punish you for giving it too consistently. They didn't just get used to you being there, they banked on it. They made your presence part of the furniture, something familiar, always in the background. And the moment you went silent, the moment you stepped back, everything started to feel unfamiliar to them, because the noise they were used to. That was you, loving them out loud. Imagine this, a house in the middle of a storm, windows shaking, thunder pounding, everything trembling around it. And inside that house is a fire, warm, glowing, constant. That fire is you. You were the warmth they returned to after running around in the cold. But here's the thing about fire. When it's constantly burning without fuel, it burns out. And once it's out, folks start realizing how cold the world actually is. And now, here come the questions. But what if they really didn't mean to treat me that way? What if I was too much? What if I made them feel smothered? Let's break these lies wide open. You weren't too much. You were too available for someone who didn't know what to do with consistency. You weren't smothering. You were soothing. You weren't asking for attention. You were asking for reciprocity. And they couldn't meet you there, so instead of rising to your level, they dragged you down to their chaos and called it balance. Let me hit you with this truth. People who are used to dysfunction will mistake healthy love for pressure. They'll treat emotional presence like control. And because you were calm, they'll say you were boring. Because you were stable, they'll say you were clingy. Not because any of that is true, but because they were addicted to adrenaline, not intimacy. It's hard, isn't it? You gave your all. You answered when they called. You supported them when they didn't deserve it. And they didn't just ignore it, they exploited it. You became the safety net they took for granted. And now, you're out of the picture. They're free-falling. They're not saying it out loud, of course. Pride won't let them. But their mind, it's loud. It remembers how you were there when no one else was. How you asked how they were doing when they didn't even know how to explain it themselves. How your check-ins, your warmth, your unwavering energy made them feel seen in a world that often made them feel invisible. But folks, this is where it gets tough, because stepping back after being the constant, it feels unnatural. It feels like you're abandoning something. You might question yourself. You might think, but what if they're struggling now? Or, what if they need me and just don't know how to say it? But let me ask you this. Where was that energy when you needed them? Where was that consistency when you were breaking, when you were questioning your own worth, when you were losing sleep over their silence? They didn't match you. They expected you. And that's the difference. They didn't appreciate your loyalty. They relied on it. And the moment you stepped out of that role, they realized what they were really losing. Not a convenience, but a connection that doesn't come around twice. Let me give you one more metaphor. Think of a piano. When someone plays the same background note over and over, it becomes part of the atmosphere. They stop noticing it. But when that note suddenly disappears, the whole song sounds incomplete. You were that note. You kept the melody going while they played out solos of avoidance and confusion. Now that you're quiet, the silence is louder than any words you could have spoken. This isn't easy. You're not just mourning a relationship. You're mourning the part of yourself that kept giving even when it wasn't being received. But guess what? That part of you isn't gone. It's evolving. It's learning that your love is valuable, that your energy isn't endless, that being the constant isn't your identity. It's a gift you choose to give. And now, you're choosing you. Don't feel guilty for stepping away. Don't feel cold for going quiet. Feel proud, because your silence is the result of growth, not grief. It's the moment you stopped begging to be seen and started seeing yourself clearly. You were the constant in their chaos, but now you're building your own peace, one that doesn't depend on their storms. And they'll remember, trust me, when life gets loud and no one answers, when they feel lost and reach for a lifeline that no longer exists, when they realize that the person who made the world feel safer is gone, they'll remember, and that memory, that's what they'll have to live with. You're moving forward. You're rising in silence. Say it with me right now. I was the calm. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that your presence wasn't just love. It was a lifeline. Number 2, they took you for granted because you made love look easy. You gave love so freely, they thought it came from a bottomless well, until you stopped pouring. My friends, let's call it what it is. They didn't lose you. They lost access to the version of you that made love look easy. The kind of love that didn't come with conditions, calculations, or games. You gave without needing to be reminded. You showed up without needing to be begged. You made effort look effortless, and that's exactly why they took it for granted. You didn't love halfway. You didn't ration out your care like it was some kind of prize to be earned. You gave all of it. Fast replies, random check-ins, gentle reminders that they mattered. You remembered the small things. You noticed their silences. You stayed on the phone longer than you should have. You waited up. You held space for their bad days, their cold moods, their emotional shutdowns. You bent without breaking, until one day you did break. Quietly. Completely. Without warning. And here's the part that hurts. They never noticed the weight you were carrying. They thought your love was easy because you made it look that way. They thought, this is just how they are. No, this is how you were with them. Because you chose them. You invested in them. You believed in them. You gave a type of emotional safety that most people spend years praying for. And what did they do? They rolled their eyes at it, treated it like background noise. And worst of all, they assumed it would never stop. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a phone always charged, always ready to answer. Every text replied to, every missed call followed up with, "Sorry, I was busy. Are you okay?" Now imagine that phone suddenly dies. No notifications, no buzz, no comfort. That silence. It's not just inconvenient, it's unnerving. And that's what your absence feels like now. Not just silence, but the loss of something that used to feel like a given. They thought you were easy to find, easy to replace, easy to forget. But what they didn't understand is that people like you don't come with instructions. They come with intention. And when they fumbled that, they lost the kind of love that doesn't just show up. It stays. Now they're out there, trying to find something that feels like you. Someone who texts back with sincerity. Someone who listens without judging. Someone who gives without being told where, when, or how much. Spoiler alert, they won't find it. Because what you gave wasn't love on autopilot. It was love born from your character. And character can't be copied. You see, folks like them are used to conditional affection, performative interest, temporary warmth. But what you gave, that was sacred, that was home. And they walked out like they had somewhere better to be. And now, here comes the fear creeping in, the doubt. But what if they really didn't mean to take me for granted? What if I should have communicated more? What if I made it too easy? Let me stop you right there. You weren't the problem. Your love wasn't too easy. It was just too pure for someone who didn't know how to hold it. They didn't think about what it cost you to love like that. The emotional labor, the vulnerability, the time, the constant "I'm okay" texts when you weren't. The nights you stayed up thinking about how to make things better. The way you always showed grace when what you needed was just some damn effort. You weren't too much. You were too available for someone who thought love was a free subscription with unlimited renewals. But love isn't renewable when it's abused. It runs out. It closes shop. It learns. And you've learned now. So don't regret the love you gave. Don't look back and wish you were colder, more distant, harder to reach. That's not who you are. And that love you gave, it's not lost. It's yours again. You're not too much. You were exactly enough for the right person, just too much for the wrong one. Because here's the truth. The ease with which you loved was never weakness. It was strength in disguise. And now that they're living without it, now that every new conversation feels shallow, every new connection feels uncertain, they finally feel what you never wanted them to feel, alone in their own emotional mess. Each day without you is a reminder that no one else texts with that kind of care. No one else notices the shift in their tone like you did. No one else makes love feel like home. You didn't lose. You just stopped pouring into the wrong cup. Say it with me right now. My love was rare. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself. Show the world that your effort wasn't weakness. It was a masterpiece. Number 3. Look what they did to you. They'll say you were too much, but never admit how little they brought to the table. My friends, let's talk about what really happened. Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not dress it up as a miscommunication or timing issues or any of the other lies we tell ourselves to ease the sting. Let's call it by its real name. They failed you, not because you expected too much, but because they gave far too little. You gave them your softness, and they treated it like a flaw. You showed them your heart, and they held it with careless hands. You adjusted your expectations, tried to be understanding, tried to meet them in the middle, even if that middle felt more like a battlefield. You lowered your volume just so they wouldn't feel overwhelmed. You second-guessed your feelings just so they wouldn't feel pressured. And what did they do in return? They gave you less effort, less clarity, less consistency, less everything. They called you too emotional, but only when your emotions asked them to be accountable. They called you too intense, but only when your intensity made their laziness look obvious. You weren't too much. You were too real for someone who was pretending to be ready for something they had no intention of nurturing. Let's break this lie down, folks. The lie they planted in your head, that you're difficult to love. No, my friend, you are not difficult to love. You are difficult to fool. And when you started to see through the performance, they flipped the script. Suddenly, it was you. You're always upset. You expect too much. You care too deeply. But here's the part they won't say. They never intended to match the energy you gave. They were just hoping you wouldn't notice. But you did. You started noticing the emotional breadcrumbs, the lazy apologies, the effort that came only when they were at risk of losing your attention, not your heart, your attention. You noticed how they never truly listened, only waited to respond. How they never checked in first. How they always had an excuse for their distance, but never a plan for showing up. And still, you stayed. You tried harder. You blamed yourself. You told yourself, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe if I just tone it down. Maybe if I'm more patient. You walked barefoot through their emotional minefields, just trying to make it to the other side. You bent over backwards, folded yourself into silence, swallowed your truth to protect their comfort. And for what? So they could call your loyalty clingy, so they could dismiss your depth as drama, so they could call your boundaries walls. Here's the truth they'll never say out loud. You made them feel seen, and they couldn't handle that kind of exposure. You reflected back everything they were avoiding. You were a mirror, and instead of stepping up, they shattered the glass. Easier to blame you than admit they were never ready to be the person you needed. And now, you're gone, quiet, absent, out of reach, not in anger, but in clarity. And that absence, it's not just felt, it's haunting, because your presence was the thing they never fully understood until it disappeared. You were the voice of reason in their chaos. The soft place to land when life got loud. And now that space is empty, and they have to live with the echo. Let me give you a picture. Imagine someone being handed a crystal vase. Beautiful, rare, fragile, but strong when handled with care. Instead of placing it somewhere safe, they toss it on the shelf like any other object. No protection. No appreciation. Then one day, it's gone. And now, every shelf looks empty. Every replacement looks cheap. Because nothing else felt like it. You were never too much. You were the right amount of everything for someone who could actually hold it. But you were way too much for someone who was emotionally bankrupt and living off borrowed energy. So no, don't wear their accusations like scars. Don't let their inability to match you become your narrative. Don't carry shame for the love you gave in good faith. Because now, your silence is saying everything your presence tried to communicate. It's saying, I saw you, I stayed, I gave, and you still fumbled it. It's saying, this version of me, the one who tried so hard, it doesn't exist for you anymore. And they can't stand that. Because they thought you'd always be there, adjusting yourself to fit their lack. They thought you'd always be almost enough for someone who was never enough for you. But not anymore. Now they sit in a room full of people who don't love like you, who don't check in, who don't show up, who don't hold space like you did. And now they start to realize you weren't overwhelming. You were overflowing. And that kind of love doesn't get replaced. It gets remembered, quietly, painfully, forever. Say it with me right now. I was never too much. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that your depth was never the problem. The shallow people trying to swim in it were. Number 4. You loved in a way that most people only dream about. They will spend years looking for what they lost in you, only to realize it was never love they were chasing. It was your energy. My friends, lean in close, because this one's going to hit deep. Let's talk about the way you loved. Not the filtered version. Not the version you downplayed so they wouldn't feel overwhelmed. I'm talking about the real thing, the kind of love most people only hear about in songs or read about in poetry, but never actually experience. You weren't perfect because perfection isn't real. But what was real? Your presence, your consistency, your heart. You didn't love to be impressive. You didn't give to get something back. You gave because it was in your nature. You poured from your soul like it was an endless fountain, not because they earned it, but because that's just who you are. Let's be clear. You didn't always say the right things. You got emotional. You got frustrated. You had moments where you broke down, but you never walked away. You showed up when it mattered. You apologized when you got it wrong. You held space even when you were hurting. You were peace when they were anxious. You were softness when they were hard to love. You were patience in a world built on speed. You brought fire and calm in the same breath. You were the storm and the sanctuary. That's what made you rare. You weren't just someone to pass time with. You were the kind of person people remember. Not for what you had, not for how you looked, but for how you made them feel, safe, wanted, chosen. You didn't play it cool, you played it real. And now that you're gone, they're not just missing you, they're starving for that feeling you brought into their life. And here's the kicker, they're not going to find it again. Because you can't manufacture depth, you can't duplicate soul. You can't fake being all in, and that's what you were. All in, fully, fearlessly. You weren't afraid to look vulnerable. You weren't scared to say, I care. You weren't trying to win a power struggle. You were just trying to build something real. And in a world full of people terrified to feel too much, you stood out like a lighthouse in the middle of a storm. But they couldn't handle it. Because let's be honest, they thought there'd always be more time. They thought your kind of love would be easy to replace. That they'd find someone else who texts back fast, listens with intent, remembers the little things, forgives too often, and gives without keeping score. But now they're out here chasing empty highs. They're swiping, scrolling, settling, connecting with people who talk a good game but don't carry the same weight. Who can pose for love but can't hold it. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine someone who grew up with homemade meals, rich flavors, soul-fed food, every meal made with care. Then one day, that chef, you, disappears, and all that's left is takeout. Fast, shallow, forgettable. Tastes okay in the moment, but never leaves you feeling full. That's what they're living in now. That's what happens when you lose someone who fed your soul. They'll try to act like they're fine, like they've moved on. But don't be fooled, because the kind of love you gave, that doesn't just vanish. It lingers, it echoes, it lives in the silence after a fake laugh. It hits at 1 a.m. when they're lying next to someone else and still feel alone. It shows up when a new person doesn't text back, doesn't notice, doesn't see them, the way you did. But don't mistake that for your responsibility, because just as much as they'll feel the void, you'll feel the weight of loving that deeply and not being met. You'll carry moments of confusion, wondering if it was worth it, if maybe you should have held back. But I want you to hear me. It was worth it. Not because of how they treated you, but because of how it proved you. You proved that real love still exists, that it can still be given in full color in a grayscale world. And even though they didn't hold it right, you did. And you still can. That love, it's not gone, it's not wasted, it's yours, and the right person, the one who's ready for the storm and the sanctuary. They won't just receive it, they'll reflect it. So don't shrink, don't become colder to protect yourself. Don't become who they were just to avoid being hurt again. That love you gave, that's your superpower. That's what separates you from the rest. Say it with me right now. I love like no one else. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that your love is a force of nature, not a flaw. Number 5. Their silence says everything. So does yours. Silence isn't empty. It's full of all the things they never had the courage to say, and all the truths you finally stopped explaining. Now it's quiet. No more late-night texts. No more half-hearted check-ins. No more "I miss you," followed by the same cycles. No apologies. No closure. No answers. Just silence. And maybe for a moment, that silence feels unsettling, like something is unfinished, like a pause that's gone on too long. But my friends, don't confuse their silence with strength, and don't confuse yours with loss. Because here's what nobody tells you. Not all silence is created equal. Yours is stoic, measured, intentional, grounded. Yours came after storms, after the breakdowns, after you tried every way to be heard. Your silence is peace earned through pain, a boundary forged in fire. It's the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs to beg for clarity, closure, or crumbs of attention. Theirs is not stoic. It's scared. It's avoidant. It's a cover-up, a mask stitched together with guilt, regret, and the hope that if they don't speak, they won't have to admit the truth. They messed up. They stayed silent because speaking would mean facing themselves. And some people would rather ghost the truth than grow from it. You want to know the difference between your silence and theirs. You're building something in yours. They're hiding in theirs. Because, folks, silence doesn't hide guilt. It amplifies it. It echoes in their empty texts, in the stories they still check, in the messages they type and never send. It rings louder at 1 a.m. when they scroll through your photos, wondering how someone so solid slipped away. And the truth? You didn't slip. You stood up and walked out. They act fine, unbothered. They post, they party, they move on. But listen carefully, because real silence doesn't show on the outside. It haunts the inside. It whispers at night when there's nothing left to distract them. It creeps in during quiet moments when their mask falls off. And it asks the one question they can't answer. How did they become strong enough to leave me in the same silence I used to weaponize? Because let's be real, they never thought you'd stop trying. They thought you'd break the silence, that you'd send the text, that you'd fold under the weight of missing them. They thought you'd crack, because you always did before. But this time, this silence isn't a waiting game. It's a declaration. This silence is you, finally realizing you don't need a reply to heal. That peace doesn't come from their words. It comes from your decision to stop needing them. Let me paint the picture. Imagine two people standing in a room after a fight. One is calm, composed, breathing deep. The other is pacing, staring at the phone, refreshing social media. One is rebuilding. The other is unraveling. You're the calm one now. The one who used to cry in the bathroom, who used to wait by the phone, who used to break the silence just to feel something. You've become the version of yourself they never thought you'd reach. One who's quiet. Not because you've given up, but because you've grown up. You've outgrown chaos, outgrown explanations, outgrown the need to prove your worth to someone who always made you feel like you had to. And sure, part of you might still wonder, why didn't they reach out? Do they even feel bad? Was I that easy to walk away from? Let me tell you something raw and real. Silence doesn't always mean they're okay. Sometimes it means they're unraveling in private because admitting they lost someone real, that would mean facing their own emptiness. And some people will drown in guilt before they'll admit they were wrong. So don't let their silence trick you into breaking yours, because every day you stay silent is a day you choose peace over chaos. Every moment you don't respond is a moment you choose self-respect over confusion. And every time you don't reach out, that's power. Not petty, not punishment. Power. It's the sound of a healed person who doesn't owe their past anything but distance. They used silence to confuse you. You're using it now to free yourself. Say it with me right now. My silence is power. Write it in the comments. Let it be your declaration. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that silence doesn't mean weakness. It means wisdom. Number 6. They'll rewrite the story to make you the villain. They won't tell the truth. They'll tell a version that lets them sleep at night. My friends, let's keep it real. When people lose someone they took for granted, the first thing they do isn't reflect, it's reframe. They'll rewrite the story, twist the narrative, make themselves the calm one, the reasonable one, the one who tried. And you? You'll become the crazy one, the clingy one, the one who wanted too much. They won't tell anyone about the way they disappeared when you needed them most. They'll skip over the confusion they caused, the promises they never kept, the way they turned cold when you got too close. They'll never mention the nights you sat awake, wondering what you did wrong, rewriting texts just to sound a little less hurt. Because taking accountability, that would mean admitting they fumbled someone who showed up, someone who loved them with depth and devotion. And that's too heavy for people who survive off denial. So they'll lie, not always loudly, but just enough to make you doubt your own experience. But here's what you need to hold on to. Truth doesn't beg to be believed. It reveals itself in silence, in time, and in the aftermath. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to correct their version. You just need to keep walking in yours. Say it with me. My truth stands tall. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Let them talk. You're choosing peace over performance. Number 7. You're not bitter. You're clear. You're not cold. You're just finally done catching fire for people who only watched you burn. This silence you're holding, it's not revenge. It's not part of some strategy. It's not a stunt to make them miss you or a pause while you wait for them to come back. No, my friends, This is what clarity sounds like. The kind of clarity that comes when you've cried the last tear, sent the last text, and given the last ounce of energy to someone who treated your love like it was disposable. You're not bitter. You're not mad. You're not secretly hoping they come back changed. You're just clear. You see it now. You see that you were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. You see that you kept showing up for someone who wouldn't even meet you halfway. You kept explaining your heart to someone who wasn't even listening. And eventually, something inside you snapped, not out of rage, but out of release. This silence isn't punishment. It's a boundary. It's a line in the sand that says, "I've had enough." It's Stoicism in action, stillness with purpose. It's walking away without slamming the door, without screaming, without needing to be right, because you finally realized your peace matters more than proving your point. Say it with me. I am clear, not cold. Write it in the comments. Let it echo through the silence. Show them. Show yourself. Number 8. Each day without you is a reminder. They lost a real one. They didn't just lose you, they lost the safest place they never knew how to protect. They'll keep moving, new faces, new distractions, scroll after scroll. They'll laugh, post, pretend, and for a while it'll almost work. But not forever, because something always creeps in. A familiar song, a quiet night, a photo they didn't delete. And just like that, there you are again. Not the version of you they misunderstood, the real you. The one who stayed, the one who loved without question, the one who gave when they didn't deserve it. And in that moment, it hits. They didn't just lose someone, they lost someone real. Someone who saw them, even at their worst, and still chose to stay. That kind of love, it doesn't knock twice. And now, that memory doesn't comfort them, it haunts them. And here's the truth, my friends. If you made it this far, then you already know. You weren't too much. You were real in a world full of temporary. They didn't just lose you. They lost the version of you that loved without holding back. That version doesn't live there anymore. So if this spoke to your soul, like this video, subscribe for more reminders of your worth, and share it with someone who needs to hear this truth today. And drop it in the comments. I am done chasing what couldn't hold me. Let the world feel your silence.